can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Now, Don, we're not that organised and never have been, but today we are about as disorganised.
No, you are.
Yeah, no, that's right, because you know what you do, Don? You come in here and you sit in your ass for about 2 hours every Wednesday and you do absolutely fuck all.
No,
I do the whole lot.
I know.
So I'm just telling you.
But I've realised that you're a control
We're not
freak.
Unorganised, we're disorganised. There's a hell of a difference. So, for a start, Ben, normally we speak to the doctor up in Sydney, Ben Fordham, but he can't. He's doing, what did he text me and said he was doing a keynote address at something and he was very disappointed, but he couldn't come in. He couldn't come in. We've got, I'll just tell you what the doc said, Dr. Ben said.
Where's Fiona Byrne?
Phoebe, we said Phoebe was going to come in.
And we had a blue with Max?
Don. Max is not in because, so we're short on,
but it's Tuesday. You got to tell all the listeners.
We're a bit thin on the ground.
Well, and we're fitting in with you because you've got a function Wednesday, have you?
Oh, so we're pretending that we're doing this. Jesus, you're hopeless. So you've just blown it. We normally do this on Wednesday, so now you've just given it away that we're doing this on Tuesday, and this is why these people aren't in here.
There's going to be an audition upstairs with people singing. You realise that?
Because it's a day early, and that's why they're not in here.
But everybody fits in with you.
But I was trying to just pretend that we were doing it on Wednesday, and those other people weren't available on the Wednesday. But it's a Tuesday we're doing it on. So well done, Don.
Have we got a guest?
We've got it. We've got a guest.
Oh,
and we've got some topics. And,
have we?
And I'm looking.
What are your topics?
I'm looking at the panel here. And there's not one cadence bar indicating that we're on air. So I'm going to push on the off chance that we're on air. I am. So here we are. So.
I'm not going to do this a second time.
Okay. So
would you like some marijuana oil to settle down?
No. So the doc, James Stewart, Dr. Jim Stewart.
But there's other doctors. Why don't other doctors prescribe this?
So, Dr. Jim Stewart, Dr. James, he said he's getting quite a bit of action from us mentioning the marijuana oil, and we say we're not doctors and we're not telling people to take it, but we take it. Or you do, Don, don't you?
Yeah.
Or you're probably drinking it now, eh? Or what are you doing?
Well, I'm yes.
And no one will know this, Don, but I've bought you a coffee and something to eat. For God's sake, God's sake, don't eat on air because we get more complaints about you eating while we're on air. So as the doc in Sydney would be very, very disappointed with this because we've done no topics and we're speaking shit just early. What we're going to do is we're going to a friend of mine from the footy show called, I can't mention his name, Rob Caldwell. He said he noticed that because Phoebe announced that the reunion of Neighbours, Kylie and Jason and all the other people who I can't remember who've been on it, the singer, what's her name, Delta Goodrem, the actor who was, I can't think of his name, but it's a hell of a lot of...
Guy Pearce?
Yes, Don. A hell of a lot of people...
I'm playing off the seat of my pants here.
Yeah.
There's one other person that wasn't there.
Just a minute, Don. Please don't preempt what I'm about to say because that's why I'm leading up to that. And he said... it was the reunion was on. I didn't see it. You've never seen Neighbours in your life, which doesn't mean to say that it's not a great show, Don. But I've never seen Neighbours in my life. And there was my friend Rob said there was one outstanding person who wasn't there, and I said, "Oh yeah, who was that?" And he said it was a person called Sara Beaumont. Sara Beaumont was a stage name of someone who used to play. On Neighbours, and I don't know how long Sara Beaumont was featured on Neighbours, and the person who played Sara Beaumont was a woman. I'm sure she's a woman, Don. I'm not sure what her pronouns are, but I've got a feeling they are she and her. The woman is called Nicola Charles. Now we've had Nicola in here a couple of times, and Nicola. She's a bit out there with some of the things she says, but she's very, very articulate and very smart. And we thought, Rob said, why don't you get Nicola in and ask her about the neighbours snub, if that's what it is, because Phoebe said, I'm not sure if Nicola's going in. And Nicola has I'm not sure if she's a friend of hers, but another woman that we've spoken about called what's her name? Costa. What's her name? Alice in Wonderland.
Peter's daughter.
Yeah. Pardon?
Peter's daughter.
I don't know whose
Peter
daughter.
Costa's daughter. Peter was a respected.
And Alice is just a dribbler who.
No, she's not.
She's a dribbler.
No, excuse me.
Just writes crap.
Nice lady. She doesn't.
Oh, well, she gave you a belting. She said you were an old, white, stale male
that's
heterosexual.
Fine. What was that about?
I'm not sure why being a white male heterosexual is a term of derision. Why is that a term of derision? That's what she called you and me.
That's all right.
And because you were talking about Daisy Pearce.
About what, her commentary?
Yeah, you didn't say anything bad about Daisy Pearce. You just said, why isn't Wayne Carey doing it as well? And Alice flew into a panic and became hysterical.
She must have been short of space.
She must have been just trying to fill a column up while listening to this.
Well, that's all right. You've got to be
listening to this broadcast.
And tolerant.
Because that's what old steeplechasers do when they go.
Excuse me.
Talk about the hand that. Fight the hand that feeds you. She rings you up and me up at the drop of a hat to get a story.
That's all right.
No,
go with us.
Yeah, well, don't.
Now, hang on. Can I ask you? Listen, you're across neighbours. There's
Alice,
someone.
you stupid woman.
Shut up. There's someone else that I want to know about who wasn't at the Neighbours reunion.
Yeah.
Craig McLaughlin. Was he on Neighbours?
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do.
Can we find what?
So this has been a tremendous exercise in preamble and just teasing a bit because I said Nicola Charles used to play Sara Beaumont, and my friend said, "Why don't you get her in and ask her?" Well, have a guess who's sitting opposite us.
How many guesses have I got?
You've got have one. Nicola Charles. So.
No.
So how did that go, Nicola? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
This is the third time you've been. We've never had people in 3 times ever.
No.
Oh my God, really?
So you came in once and you had not a conspiracy theory. You had a very sensible discussion about vaccines, and you had a very sensible discussion about something else going on. And I'm not sure if you thought the moon landing was real or not. But
no, it's not.
That's not. And then you came in because your boyfriend, I think, was standing for Parliament.
He likes me to call him my husband, but yes.
Is he your husband?
Well, not as far as the government's concerned, but as far as we're
What?
concerned.
Is he your husband or not? Are you married to him?
You mean with a government piece of paper? No.
But there's a commitment, Johnny.
Yes.
There's a commitment.
Don, this is not an inquisition as to her private. I'm just
You
asking.
know I'm anti-government. Why would I sign a government piece of paper inviting governments and courts into my relationship? But no, in our hearts we're married.
Nicola, please. All I was just... I don't care.
Do you know who you reminded me of then, Nicola?
Who's that, Don?
Lydia Thorpe.
Lydia Thorpe.
She sits in the Senate and she's a Greens politician.
Oh, that's very depressing, Don.
Yeah. When you said about the
Well, if you want to hear the most sensible and best commentary of what's going on in this country regarding the Indigenous people, have a listen to Jacinta Price. I can't pronounce her middle name. I think it's an Indigenous name. But Jacinta Price's maiden speech in the Senate, she was fantastic. She said exactly what the situation is, and she's a proud Indigenous person.
Yeah.
And she was she got a standing ovation in a Senate. I listened to the whole lot of it, half an hour, and she was fantastic.
I tried to understand. I don't know whether you watched it, Nicola, or if somebody could please explain it to me. I am so ignorant. I tried to listen to the referendum that they had the voice. I wrote it down here. The Gama Festival in the Northern Territory. I watch Albanese on Outsiders on Sunday morning. I did not. There was a hell of a lot of rhetoric. And then they had 3 interviewees. Stan Grant was one of them. A lot of rhetoric, but Stan Grant came up with one thing, is that the Indigenous people have elders, they have elders who make the decisions. Now, that is the first practical thing I've heard about this referendum. I don't understand what it's going to do, but do the Aboriginals want to be represented by elders in our parliament? Can somebody please tell me what's going on?
I'm not fully down that rabbit hole, but I would much rather listen to Aboriginal elders than Anthony Albanese, I'll be honest
Yes,
with you.
Anthony Albanese. This is sheer grandstanding and woke hypocrisy.
said
It's virtue signalling.
It's
You
virtue
signalling
crap.
Yeah.
This is what you do. You tumble in to following the shit. They're like
Who,
sheep.
he is or we are?
He's
He
a
is
dill.
bringing the country,
he's
hanging flags and doing all the
Yep.
virtue signalling. While
He is.
for decades they've been ripping them off. You know, they've allowed massive mining companies to mine on their land and said, oh, you know, we'll put 5% of the profits into a bank account for the indigenous communities. And guess what? They've never seen a dollar.
It's virtue signalling with cow eyes is Anthony Albanese. That's, anal, Anthony anal. Now, Don, Jacinta Price, I'm not sure if she echoed or Stan Grant echoed what she said, but she said, before we ask everyone else to help our people, how about we help them? How about they help themselves? And she's one of them.
This is what I wanted to bring.
There's the incidents of drug taking and alcoholism and domestic violence and all that. She said, if we could just tidy our own house up first before we ask everyone else to help us. And she was fantastic. And
Well, I wanted to ask Ben Ford. I've had a go at Ben Fordham twice now. I was in Burke, but he just shies away from it. Everybody and the government and the state government shy away from what is actually happening in places like Burke, Walgett.
Because it's not a good look, Don.
Warriner. What's that?
It's not a good look, so they're not going
It's
to
not a
address
good
it,
look,
are
but
they?
why not address it and clean it up?
Look, all they care about is good marketing and PR. So the scariest phrase in any democracy from a government is "we're here to help." So if they say they're going to help in one direction, it's usually because they are trying to distract from an area of gross unfairness in another direction. So I would suggest that's what's happening.
Youth crime in these places is unbelievable. It was in the newspaper before I left. I went to Burke.
So where are the police? Why aren't they
There's
policed?
10 police cars at the Burke's police station. Now, the police woman came out on the front page of the Burke paper and said people have got to lock their homes at night because of invasion. Now, the night before I left, a gang of youths went and held up the local, one of the motels there, held the night manager up, took his car and burnt it. Now, this crime is just going on and on. It's got to be addressed.
They wouldn't put up with it in Toorak, Don, and I'm sure something would be done about it, so they could easily do something about it there.
This is more or less what she didn't quite mention that precinct, but this is what Jacinta Price said. It happens in these areas and doesn't happen in other areas. Why don't anyhow? We've got off the track, Don.
No, we haven't, because I'd like to include.
As a matter of fact, we have
Nicola's involvement here.
As a matter
and
of fact, Don, we have got off the track because we were about to say we're happy to speak to Nicola about anything, but we got off the track because I had indicated that a whole lot of stars had come back for the reunion of Neighbours, and my friend Rob said, "Why don't you get Nicola in?" Because I got a feeling she was given the flick as Sara Beaumont. And here she is here, and she said, I think, that it was a waste of time and don't know why anyone watched it. Have I got any of that right, Nicola? And why weren't you asked back? And how long were you, Nicola, how long were you, Sarah? How long were you Sara Beaumont on Neighbours?
It was 3.5 years the first time, or 4 years, I think, 95, 96 to 2000. Then I went back from 2012 to 2013, and then I went back in 2016. And I would like to clarify, I never got the flick as Sara Beaumont. They just shipped her off to Germany for some cancer treatment.
No, I didn't mean Sara Beaumont got the flick.
Yeah.
Me
personally.
Yes. 6 years you on and off were Sara Beaumont. That's extraordinary. And you were you not, invited to the reunion?
No, but it's
that's
a
what I
long
meant.
story.
Were there other people that were there longer than you? Was there a cut-off point as far as duration?
No, it was a strangely mixed bag. And one of the old stalwarts, a real gent and a beautiful, beautiful man, Terry Donovan, Jason's dad.
Yes.
I noticed that they'd plonked him on a plastic barbecue chair, and he was just included in a wide shot. He didn't get to say anything. He was just plonked there.
But it'd be hard to get everybody involved, wouldn't it?
It would be hard to get everyone involved, but the level of performances that the directors and writers did not manage to squeeze out of the cast in that episode would have been greatly improved if they'd actually included the people who could act. The only person who could act in that episode was Guy Pearce. And look, perhaps it's because there was a lot of bitterness. You know, all of these writers had just lost their jobs, their cushy jobs. Same for the directors, same for the actors. But they didn't do it justice. And quite honestly, when Alice rang me for a comment, I said, look, it was a shambles. And initially I was upset that I hadn't been asked back, because I wasn't aware of it ending in the last episode, and fans kept saying, are you involved? And I said,
Who said?
The fans kept contacting
fans,
and
yes,
saying,
yes.
are you involved? And I said, no, I don't think I've been asked.
So this is what I'm asking you,
But they
Nicola.
have asked me. Fremantle have sent the paperwork through. There's a 90-minute film, a documentary, after the last episode of Neighbours in the UK called Neighbours Made Me a Star, and they're including Sara Beaumont and myself in that documentary. So that's all gone ahead.
Is that a knee-jerk reaction to you not
No, that happened before. It was, to be fair, it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. And look, when Alice called me, she like your friend Rob, whatever he's called, said, why
Rob
weren't
Caldwell.
Yeah, why weren't
Yeah.
you in the last
You shouldn't
episode?
be mentioning his name.
Rob Caldwell, he's a freelance writer. He used to be he was my right-hand man on the footy show. I'm not
So
sure
he
if he
writes your
I'm
lines?
not sure if he wants to hang his hat on that, but he writes. He's a writer, and he's in the business. So he's a very good man, Rob Caldwell. And he said, so Nicola, you haven't quite
It's a long story. Do you want to hear it?
No, I want to ask you I do, but
Yeah.
I want to ask you this. The Neighbours people were having a last show reunion,
Yeah.
and you, who played the part of Sara Beaumont, were on it on and off for 6 years. They did not ask you even to come to the filming. Is that right?
That's right.
Now, why?
Okay, so the last time I was on the show in 2016, the character of Sara Beaumont was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and it was a good challenge as an actor to play the role. And selfishly, I looked at that and I was very excited. However, when I got back on set and I was looking at what was going on with a lot of the other characters, I noticed a very strong thread. I noticed that all of the middle-aged women characters on that show all had cancers, breast cancer, stomach cancer, or they had MS, and they were, a couple of them died, and all of the middle-aged men on the show were perfectly healthy. And so I recorded all the cancer storyline, and then they booked in about 15 British radio shows, and it was all in the night, so I had to stay up because I was in Melbourne. And they were asking me, how did you feel about this storyline? How did you feel about that? And I said, because I am a truth teller, Sam, I said, look, I think it's a bit weird that, they basically make out that when women get to middle age, they're over, they're finished, they're done, they're going to get sick, they're no good anymore, and the men are all fighting fit and they're absolutely fine. And the publicist contacted me from Neighbours, and she was very upset. She said, how could you have said something like that? We gifted you this wonderful storyline that was a challenge as an actor, and I know I did a great job, because my kids were on set sometimes and they were in tears because my character was saying goodbye to her son and all that kind of stuff. And of course, then when the pandemic hit, I started to think back and get suspicious about the fact that all these cancers and MS and all these illnesses in these middle-aged women might be related to some kind of narrative, some kind of agenda that was coming. Because we see this in British soaps as well. Everyone's having a heart attack now, and monkeypox and all that stuff.
Monkeypox.
Yeah. So I started to think, hang on, was this the precursor? Because they call it social conditioning with soaps, that they're telling you what to expect and what's coming. And then when I wasn't asked back, after 18 months of me doing my own research and basically shit-canning this scamdemic and the remedy that was rolled out for the scamdemic, then I realised, there's no way on earth I'm ever going back on the show. That was before I knew it was ending.
But that didn't. Pardon me, but didn't they killed you off on the show, didn't they?
No, she just went to Germany for treatment and then never heard from her again.
Because that was my next question, because if they'd killed you off, how could they ask you back if you were
they
dead?
didn't. As far as I know, they didn't kill me off. But, you
yes,
you never know. If we publicise it enough, there might be a Sara Beaumont spin-off.
So they didn't ask you back because you were outspoken.
Probably,
and you wrote a book
yeah.
about the Turak lives of celebrities.
I wrote The Witches of Turak,
Yes,
but also I released my own autobiography, Soap Star. And in my autobiography, I did talk about the fact that as a young actress when I was 25, it was really upsetting to see how many young actresses on the show were doing drugs to stay skinny, and that I was offered drugs in the bathroom, in the wardrobe room, that kind of thing. And the ambulances were arriving to cart them off. And that's just the truth of being part of television and movies, and it's the side that's not talked about because, you have to stay gorgeous at all costs. And, I guess they probably thought, we'll stuff you. You've told the truth and that's not allowed.
Now, Craig McLachlan, he was on Neighbours. Now, he.
Well, that's why Alice Costa rang me, and that's why the story ran last week.
Giving Alice a run today, aren't we?
Yeah.
We better get Alice in. I wonder if Alice would come in and speak to us.
She probably would. She's feisty. I like
Is
Alice.
She?
She said to me,
You'd have to get up early to have a crack at us.
She said to me, do you feel like Craig McLachlan, because he was cancelled because, he had a court case or something? I didn't really look at it that much. I was really working through that.
They got into the woke bed, didn't they? They didn't want him.
And I said, well, I haven't done it. I haven't been involved in any court cases or anything like that. If I've been cancelled.
So was there anyone else beside you two?
Oh, yeah. I think there were a few people that were universally left out. I just think it was such a strange episode. It was too long for a Neighbours episode for a start. I think it was 90 minutes. And were it not for Guy Pearce, whose performance is always enjoyable to watch, it would have been unwatchable. It was a shambles. And that's what I said to Alice. And initially, of course, my nose was out of joint. Like, oh my God, why wouldn't they invite Sara Beaumont back?
Yes, that's what we're asking you. That's why you're here.
Some of the scenes were just dire. But then when I saw the episode, I felt relief because, the television's like the internet. It's there forever. So at least what's there forever of Sara Beaumont wasn't part of that terrible last episode. So I'm a bit relieved, to be honest.
And so you didn't fall into the trap of taking drugs just to keep yourself thin or something. I hate people.
Do I look thin, Sam?
Well, you wouldn't be taking them now.
No, I just didn't.
25 years ago.
Well, I was a runner. Like all my life, I used to run like 26K a week before I had COVID.
I hate people who take drugs. Like police officers and customs officers.
Exactly.
So you've hated yourself in the past?
Yeah, Don, that's a joke. Don, did you get that? I hate people who take drugs, like policemen and customs officers.
That's funny, Sam.
Where's the line?
Yeah, exactly. Where the line, you should be snorting it, Don. That might give you some...
Okie dokie.
Right, so Nicola, have you been contacted by the people of Neighbours or the producers since you've opened up on them?
No, but I have signed the paperwork to be part of the documentary, so hopefully that still goes ahead. If not, I guess I won't be getting paid.
A documentary on Neighbours?
Called Neighbours Made Me a Star. It's quite flattering that they think I'm a star.
So there's other people beside yourself in
Yes, there's other people
so
beside
who went on from Neighbours, just off the top of your head, and became a star? Who started on Neighbours?
Gee, Kylie?
Well, I'm asking because I never saw an episode of it.
Well, that's another thing. Kylie came back for that final one, and she just stood there grinning for the hour that she was on, and she didn't have a line. And it makes me think they couldn't afford to pay her to speak, and therefore she was a non-speaking extra.
Right.
Because it was so strange to get Kylie Minogue, who played such a vital character on the show, not to say a word. She just sort of gestured to an open window that she might break into it.
It'd just be the look, wouldn't it, to have her there? And was Delta Goodrum there?
No, she just did a little video message, and I've done those before. When I lived in London, they asked me to do a video message from my back garden in London because it was Dr. Carl's birthday. You've got the bracing bits with them. You thought, no, this is ridiculous. This is petty stuff on their behalf. Is that what you know? What it felt like? It felt like they lined up 3 cameras and just threw all the people they could get on the cheap in the shot and said, do whatever you want. It didn't feel scripted. There was no sort of rounding off of any of the storylines, and there was absolutely no suspension of of disbelief, like you knew that you were watching people who just lost their job act. And it wasn't always like that. You know, you used to be able to get caught up in the storylines and the relationships, and the final episode just didn't do it justice. And as I said to Alice, I hope that someone someone funds a different final episode where they manage to wring out a performance.
This is the Alice Costa half hour. That's
all right. She's a good writer, Alice.
What?
She's a good writer.
Is she?
She gets good stories.
As long as she doesn't write crap, she's
No,
a good
can
writer.
I go back to my other question, or don't you know?
Sure.
Who got their break on Neighbours? You mentioned John, Delta Goodrem. I didn't realise she started.
Kylie did, and they all did.
Okay,
Pearce.
well, who else? Because I never watched an episode of it.
Oh,
Guy Pearce, Jason Donovan.
Really? Yeah.
Kylie.
Who's that big Australian actor, the really, really famous one? He's really scary.
Eric Boehner.
No.
He was on it, wasn't he? Eric?
Was he?
I don't
know.
There's been
I'm
a few
asking
people.
you.
A tall bloke that's scary.
Yeah, he's big and scary. He's in that movie. He was, I always forget his name.
Jeez,
It's
he must
terrible.
be a star.
No, he's an Oscar winner.
Oscar.
Australian Oscar winner. Australian
He was
Oscar?
in that movie recently.
Which one?
The guy that was enraged in the ute driving around. Unhinged. Look up Unhinged on your phone.
Oh, I will.
The actor that's the lead actor in that. I mean, you'll
He's
laugh.
an Australian.
Yeah, and I do you know, I always forget his name, and it's really terrible.
Gee,
that I
Don,
always
you
forget his
should
name.
know this.
No, I
You're-
don't
No,
know
you
because
know
I don't.
absolutely
Come on,
Russell Crowe.
Was he?
Oh, well, he's a New
He
Zealander.
started on
He
Neighbours.
was on Romper Stomper, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Wasn't that his first show?
Well, he went on Neighbours
Isn't he a
too.
New Zealander?
Is he?
He's a New Zealander.
Yeah.
He's
Anyhow,
not
That's
tall.
all right. No,
He's
he's
not
big
tall.
and
He's
burly.
shorter.
He's
though,
big and burly.
And a great actor.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
Great actor.
And they say that there was always this thing on set on Neighbours where they always said, when they had their little, at the end of the scene, goodbye to people, they always said these comments, and it was really interesting that all the best actors leave and the trash remains, and that's how they sort of made them feel better about leaving. But actually, the people that left did do quite well.
Anyhow, look, there we are. So, so that's what we asked you to do. We're very welcome to sit in.
What are you hanging your hat on at the moment, Nicola?
Thank you, Don.
I have a real job, and I'm totally
No,
out.
but I mean, what are you...
With your husband?
No.
But you've
What do
got
you
a
mean,
cause.
what do I-
Well, you've got a cause. You're anti-vaxxed and all the rest of it.
Oh,
and
stop
last
it,
time-
Don. That is such an insult. I'm fully vaccinated.
No,
I'm
not saying that. I'm asking
gene
you what
altered.
cause are you pushing at the moment?
Well, I'm not pushing any kind of cause except for I moved to Australia with my 3 children. It took me 3 years in court in LA to win a custody battle to raise my children in Australia. And I came here because it was a progressive country and a free country. And I feel like we're losing our freedoms thanks to
Why?
corrupt politicians like Dan Andrews. And I want them gone. I want them investigated. I want them over.
But do you think you'll get them investigated?
Yes.
You will. You do.
Well, not me personally, but I'm
No,
part
I don't
of a
think
movement.
we will. I don't think we will we?
Well, we have to. We have to get rid of them, Don, because these are not people that care about this country, and it's just not fair. You know, the people of Australia don't deserve this. I mean, fancy Australia being on the other side of the world, and they're following the dictates of this psychopath Klaus Schwab in Davos and all the things he wants to do. It's just horrendous.
Who?
Australia is
Who?
underpopulated.
What? Underpopulated? I don't think we can carry them anymore.
26 million people, and it's 32 times the size of England.
But we're
England
also
has 70 million people.
We're a very arid country and we haven't got much fertility. There's
Only-
only a small line of fertility down the east coast, the south, down around the south, and maybe stretching to Adelaide and a little bit in
But
Perth.
surely, Don, you can't be on board with a depopulation agenda.
My word, I reckon the whole world should be depopulated. That's part of our that's part of our crisis that we're in at the moment.
And how do you think they should do that? Do you think they should
Like
do that by
did in
lying
China,
to people
like
about a
they did
flu?
in China, and limit the one just
I
have one
agree.
child.
I talked about that on radio in 2019 before the shit show fell down. I said I
Before the
used
what
to think
fell down?
the shit show.
What shit show?
The pandemic.
Oh.
I said that it used to feel barbaric that China said you could only have one child, and there was all those horrible stories that baby girls were getting flushed down the gutter because they all wanted a boy and
that's
all
a
that
bit
stuff.
rugged, Nicola.
Exactly. There's
No wonder you didn't get
Don,
an
there's
invite.
ramifications to the things you're suggesting, but what you don't do is invent some bioweapon in a lab, release it, and then say, "Oh, we've got the cure," and the cure. The side effect of the cure is COVID. That's been proved.
No wonder you didn't get an invite. I wouldn't have invited you back to
Don,
the... the thing of neighbours either.
John, the push and the hoax about the vaccine.
But we're talking...
No, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. But you have that dopey man who is just the only man, president, that is actually functioning without a useful brain. He said, and so did his medical advisor, Dr. Fauci, they said that if you get the vaccine, you will not get COVID. Now, silly dopey Joe's had it twice. He's had more boosters. It is a hoax.
And Dr. Birx.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, because we've all had it. But I tell you what, I'll be having no more boosters, because there is so much unsolicited and unreported damage that some of the vaccines are doing. And I mentioned Neil Curley. Neil Curley had a booster and got a spike in his heart, and I don't know if this has been made, we've discussed this before, and they, instead of saying that he died in a car accident, they've now amended and said he died of a medical condition. And there is so much of this that goes unreported because it doesn't fit the narrative.
That's right, it's deliberate.
If you control the society, if you control speech and language, you control society.
Well, you control the media. That's what Hitler said. Control the media, and you can control everybody.
That's exactly what's going on.
How do you feel about the fact you might have been lied to, Don? That you might have vaccinated?
I know I was lied to.
Well, then be angry about that. We are.
The restrictions that we were put under, that I couldn't do my shopping or go there or go this way.
It was all a lie.
My word, but they put those restrictions. Hey, I'm not vaxxed. I was against it. And I'm also against the fact that we're not able to choose the vaccine of our choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so, hey, you're preaching to converted here.
Well, anyhow, so there we are. So
as you see, quite outspoken, and that's probably why I wasn't invited back onto that family show.
Well, no, but that's just... that in itself is selective bias and selective editing, or if it is ridiculous.
It's discrimination.
It
is.
No, it is.
It is. It's discrimination against me for being unvaccinated and an outspoken woman. And I won't mention the name of the journalist, but she said to me that it was...
Alice Costa?
She thought it was fantastic that I was an outspoken woman and I should be given a platform.
You said she.
You wouldn't mention the journalist.
No, she. We've got it down to she, so...
Because you tell me I mention her too many times, Sam.
What, Alice in Wonderland?
Alice Costa.
Alice, I think, lives in Wonderland. And I'll tell
rude.
you another person who was the head of an organisation and used to be on this podcast, and he wasn't asked to go to a reunion. You remember the Rocket used to be on here?
Mm.
Rod
How's
Law?
that settlement going?
Rod Law.
How's that settlement?
Shut up, Don, please.
I want to know. Everybody, Ben wants to know about.
He set up apparently
everything
to do with Fox Sports and Mick Sheehan. Mick, who he's pretty,
What?
Oh no, he's very strong and wouldn't shrink away from anything. Mick.
Mick.
Yeah,
bullshit.
Mick. Yeah.
You serious?
No, I'm not. He said, so they had a big reunion of Fox, and the only person that wasn't asked back is the person who set it up, and that was the Rocket.
What did he do?
And I said to Mick, did you go in bat for him? And he said, yes, I did. I asked, and I said, yes. Mick said, yeah. I said, well, you didn't go in hard enough, Mick. He said, oh, no, well, he said there was a bit of dissent. I said, well, mate, you're a friend of his. Why don't you step to the plate? And he said, oh, well, I did. Yeah, no. Yeah. That's what happened here. Mick jumped off here because of a little bit.
No, he got some outside pressures.
He did outside pressure.
Well, that's the thing. Look at all of us here.
Hey?
Same for you, Sam. Like you speak the truth, or as you see it to be, and you're not allowed.
I speak shit, do I not? So anyhow, now have you got?
They clip your wings, don't they? They remind you that you're not really living in a free democracy. They clip your wings and go, "Yeah, you're out. Shut up."
So Don. If you got any, so Nicola is, we've got Nicola in for that reason. She's welcome to stay here forever. Have you got any topics?
Yes, I have got a million.
Well, right.
Ask me anything, Don. This is the
Well,
Nicola
are you
Charles
into medicinal? Okay, now you're a little bit alternative. You live up, well, I won't say where you live, but you're going to move further out. So you're a little
country girl. Yeah,
you're a little bit different. Are you into the marijuana oil?
I'm not, actually.
Why?
I'm quite interested that you guys are talking about it. So I'm into wine. So
wine is a drug.
Well, I have a couple of glasses of wine occasionally, and that makes me happy enough. And usually, I have to say, by the second glass, I'm asleep on the couch. So there's not much room for anything else in my life, Don.
You know, 1 glass habitually means you're an alcoholic. 2, you're in trouble.
Oh, come on.
You're
A
a
glass
t-
of Pinot Gris? I don't
You're
think
a
so,
tippler.
Don.
You're not an avid tippler. You're not drinking
No.
too much, are you?
Not
you're
at all.
You're not using
I
it
can't.
as a
I hold
crutch.
down a real
You
job.
and your husband,
Sam.
who you're not married to, you're not.
He's a non-drinker. He's he's teetotal.
So the only reason we speak about the marijuana oil, and it sounds like that we are sort of great advocates for it. We're not at all, but we mentioned it that we did take it for various little ailments that
Aches
we have.
and pains, yeah.
And then I got inundated with people saying, "Why do you mention this? And who can you get it from?" And we've mentioned the doctor, Dr. James Stewart. And we don't know his address, but you can Google where he is, and he's got a clinic out there, and he gives you a prescription or a script for it, and you go and you can't.
What do you do with it? The oil,
Will you stick it?
You take it once a day.
as in
or twice a
ingest
day.
it, drink
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
you
drink
get a little eyedropper, and you put the measured.
It does work.
The
Yeah.
measured dose under your tongue, and there's 2 sorts. I don't
Can
know
you
why-
still drink wine with it?
Yeah, you can do anything you want to.
I don't know why
Nicola.
we keep talking about it, but there's 2 sorts. There's the CDC, which hasn't got the marijuana, the stuff that makes you go loopy.
THC, yeah.
And the THC is the one that actually induces sleep because it makes you just go into a bit of a...
So is it a sleep aid or
It does,
It
yes.
is. If you take...
Yes.
There's 2 sorts.
same as my wine then?
Yes, there's 2 sorts, and it's... We have found it beneficial, but we're not saying that we're not...
No, I know some
we're-
people do find it beneficial.
Anyhow, and we've
Well, we
mentioned
could
him
ask
again.
Nicola. I've got a few questions here to ask Nicola,
Sure,
and I'd like
Don.
to get your opinion. Are you a sports person? No.
Ooh, I was at the MCG on Saturday to watch
Okay,
Collingwood.
well, the
win.
Commonwealth Games are in Birmingham at the moment.
That's
Did
right.
you realise that?
Yes, I did.
One thing that intrigues me about the English performance is
Yeah.
that it's a little bit below par. Now, they really came to the fore a couple of years ago and they invested in their sports program through a lottery.
Yes. The National Lottery funds a lot in the UK. Yeah.
What, do you know why? What, don't they get the funding now from the National Lottery for these athletes? Because their
I'll tell-
athletes are not performing as they used to.
No. There is a lack of investment in sport, whether it's with grants from the National Lottery or not. But honestly, all this crap about the planet heating up and sea levels dropping, rising,
got to
whatever.
do with the,
It's bloody cold in the UK, that's why, Don. So it's really hard for people to train. I mean, you're talking...
Yeah, but they did it before, Nicola. This is what I'm saying to you.
Mm.
They did it before. The other thing is, which came out of the Commonwealth Games for me, and I've got to compliment the English, the 2 opening ceremonies that
Yeah.
were, geez, somebody's got to be patted on the back, was the Olympic Games. I don't know if you watched the Olympic Games in London, the opening ceremony.
Bit scary. Did you understand the meaning of the opening ceremony at
But
London?
I thought the entertainment was
Well, the
very good.
entertainment was giant depictions of children lying in hospital beds with evil-looking nurses dancing around while an effigy of Satan floated above them all,
Jeez.
and everyone was masked. And this was way before the pandemic.
Now, is that the Olympic Games?
It was prophetic.
Well, I saw Queen and the entertainment, and I thought that was very, very good, the way the Queen got
The
involved.
entertainment's good, but when you look back, if you actually go to YouTube now and look up the opening ceremony from the London Olympics, it's absolutely terrifying. They are describing perfectly the pandemic.
Now, Don, I've mentioned this to someone there. Sue Stanley, who was the 4 times world aerobics champion, she
that's
said,
hard.
No, she was, and she's. I'm a friend of hers, and she said, "Did I watch the Commonwealth Games?" She said, "Did you see the opening ceremony?" She said it was the best ever. of
Duran
any-
Duran, right? Wasn't Duran Duran playing? That's good.
No,
They're
she
good.
said it was
They're
the
a local
best
band from
ever of
Birmingham.
any
That's right.
Olympics or Commonwealth
Well,
Games.
that's what I was just trying to say.
Well, I'm
So
just
then we're better at
backing you up.
entertainment than sport.
Well, I thought it was terrific, and that's why. But you went off on a tangent about COVID. Okay, now you're into Brett Sutton. Hang on, Brett Sutton. Now he
Corrupt.
hasn't been seen for a long time, a couple of months. Yet it was brought up last week in the press, in Victorian press, and lo and behold, I don't know if you saw his first press conference, but he came in like something the cat had dragged in from outside. He was in. Did you see his press conference? He had an open neck shirt. I think he had a hoodie on.
That's what happens when you've been taken off for Chinese-style re-education, Don.
What are you talking about?
Well, he did. When people disappear for a long time or get pushed down the stairs, they've been taken off for some Chinese-style re-education.
Nicola, please don't get us into trouble. Brett Sutton, we don't have a great opinion of him because he's just gone along with the government line about
even
all
when it
this
hasn't made
nonsense.
sense. Yeah,
and he also was part of getting rid of. He was also part of getting rid of I Cook Foods by cancelling their licence after they were rorted by the state government and put out of business in favour of the government's community chef business.
So who do you think's pulling his strings?
Absolute what?
Who do you think's pulling his strings? So?
Well, I don't think he's got any control over his pulling his strings.
They're all puppets.
Yeah,
well, we realised that, but he reappeared. But the way he made his opening or his first press conference for months was an absolute disgrace to him.
Yeah.
And the Premier, who is in charge of the most corrupt and dishonest government probably in the history of the known world, have now allowed, I think, or put a motion through Parliament, whether it's been passed or not, that Brett Sutton is immune from being
all bureaucrats,
prosecution,
John.
And all that. Yeah.
What?
All bureaucrats.
How's the red shirts, right? Imagine if you walked into a bank and stole all that money and then said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll give it back." No, it doesn't work that way.
Well, how about the Premier actually acknowledging that all this has gone on, and he's still there?
So why can't we impeach these people?
Because they don't have the numbers. You know how that's why they can't. That's why they did it in America. If you got the numbers in both houses, you can do anything you like, which is what they're doing.
And there's another danger on the horizon in Victorian politics as well, and that's Fiona Patten. She's just doing terrible things. You've got to keep an eye on her as well.
Yes, that's right. Whatever that. Okay, so
she's only one in the Senate, an independent or Freedom Party in the Senate.
But she keeps proposing horrendous legislation.
Well, she may, but she's got to get it through. And the only thing that of value she is she's an independent, and if the government have got to push something through, they've got to con her as well as a couple of other
her vote's always for sale. She said that it was okay for street workers that were positive for HIV and AIDS to continue having unprotected sex. That was her contribution to this health pandemic.
Well, what about the CDC, which is the Centre for Disease Control, I think, in America? They have put out an official list of things that you should do if you want to have sex if you've got monkeypox. Wouldn't you reckon you'd say don't have sex if you've got monkeypox because it is predominantly, now I'm not saying this, it's predominantly a gay disease, and that's not me saying that, that's a common.
But you know what, Sam, can I congratulate you on saying it's predominantly a gay disease? Because do you know what they say on television? Kerry Chant. This mainly affects men who have sex with men. Now, there's children watching the 6 o'clock news. All you need to do is say gay men. We get it.
Yep,
Why do you have to stand there and say men who have sex with men? What is wrong with these politicians and bureaucrats?
Because if you can't say that someone who gives birth to a child is a mother, you have to say it's a birthing parent.
Yeah.
And if you have to do that, and when you're asked what the definition of a woman is, you can't give a definition of a woman. What do you think a woman is?
Yeah.
If you can't give that, you've got no chance of having any logical discussion anywhere in the public forum.
Okay.
Now, Don, I want to. You will. I hesitate to bring this up with Nicola here because this is. I've thought, should I mention this? I reckon this is in the public interest, just to show just who is out there wandering around and you don't know. There's really ill people mentally wandering around, and there's a couple of examples I'd like to give you, but they're a bit off. I'm not being gratuitously grubby or gratuitously in bad taste.
Should Nicola leave the room?
No, she couldn't give a stuff. But I'm just saying I don't.
Nothing shocks me.
This is a man. I'm not sure if I should read this out.
Please do. I'm fascinated now.
This is a man called Clarence Dawson who comes from. He lives in Preston, not in Australia. Preston in England.
Oh.
And Clarence.
Your face.
Jesus.
Clarence goes down to the beach and removes his pants.
In Preston?
In Preston.
That must
Is
be
there
chilly.
a beach in Preston?
Very chilly.
And
Is there a beach at Preston?
Spit it out, Sam. What does he do? Don't.
Right.
Is it the obvious?
I'm going to read this out. This is it. I only wanted the seagulls to peck my penis.
Oh, for God's sake.
Known Preston pervert Clarence Dawson. He lay naked on a St Anne's beach and covered his penis in hot chips and hoped the seagulls would peck at his willy. That's how he gets his rocks off, Don.
How very strange.
One disgusted dog walker said he just sat there. He had his he gives the generic term for a man's member. He had his dick out, and at least it was on the flop. It wasn't hard. At least it was on the. I don't suppose you could get chips to stay on it.
He wasn't excited, in other words.
No, but he. I think when the seagulls came and pecked the chips off his dick, I think he got a fair head of steam up. And so, how would you be if you're out? How would you be if you're out at the beach at St Anne's in Preston, and you saw Clarence there just with his dick out and seagulls pecking
I'd make him a YouTube star. That's what I'd do.
Yeah, and I'm not going to read the other one out, which is
why not?
Is it worse than that one?
Yeah, it's worse. No. Well, it's worse. It's worse, but this is true, and this is a woman who posted on the social media having sex with her dog.
Oh, God.
No, and she said, so people said it was a disgrace.
Yeah.
And she said, well, look, and hers, she said, I never did it for the pleasure and I never did it for the money. There's a much bigger story behind it. What would be the story behind having sex with your dog? And she said, they wanted to take the dog off me, but I've been kept at it and it's got blown out of all proportion. I've lost so many friends and I'm trying to move on with my life. Why would you put that? Why would you have sex with your dog? Like I've seen it.
What, you've seen someone have sex with their dog?
I've seen the dog having sex with her. If you think
what is on YouTube?
It is.
And somebody sent it to you, or you went troll.
Is she trying to say that her dog is her intimate partner, and therefore you sort of can't steal my husband? No, but you said they wanted to take the dog off her, so maybe she's saying he's like a support person, a husband, an intimate partner, but that's probably bestiality, right? Isn't that the definition of bestiality?
Absolutely. And she
No, I think bestiality
that's bestiality.
Well, hang on. No, I thought if you were the perpetrator, that's bestiality. If the dog is the...
I will.
Well, she's a woman, and the dog is a male.
I will show you. You won't believe it, and the dog's pretty happy about it. And yeah. You've heard about doing it doggy style. Well, he actually does it doggy style. And she said, I didn't do it for the money and I didn't do it for the pleasure. She said, there's a bigger story to it. I'd like to know what the bigger story is. But
attention-seeking, Sam, that's the bigger story.
Oh, well, she said she's lost a lot of her friends. You would lose a lot of your friends.
Was this another one from the UK?
No, this is in America.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I think it's in America.
Neither of those countries are Australia, so we're okay. Although I do worry about what goes on in some of these remote farms.
We started on so Nicola, you're welcome to stay, but thank you very much. We're going to stop this now, Don. And
thanks, Sam.
With those two wonderful little sides about.
And you didn't bring any notes.
Clarence Preston.
You didn't bring any notes.
Not Clarence Preston. Clarence, what was his name? Anyhow, the bloke who puts chips on his dick for the seagulls to peck it. I thought, no, that's an unusual way to get your rocks off.
It's a good way to end the episode about neighbours finishing.
Yeah, it is. So here we go. So that's it. So.